Welcome to Talks with Sheba, the place where real people give real answers about issues plaguing our community today. Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. Thanks for hanging out on this marvelous Monday. We like to excite, invite, educate, and empower. So let's talk. Let's talk about workplace bullying. Workplace bullying is more prevalent than you know. It is happening in the most unlikely places. Let's listen.
Hi, I'm Gary Namey, Director of the Workplace Bullying Institute. Thanks for visiting our website. I appreciate it a lot. And the heavy traffic shows to us how big of a problem workplace bullying really is. We do the surveys, we know that, but it's good to see that people care in increasing numbers. Now, I could define bullying for you. It's at the website. Go ahead and read it. But let me tell you what really outrages me about bullying. It is a systematic, laser-focused campaign of interpersonal destruction. A unilaterally declared war by the perpetrator, by the bully, on a couple targets. And they do this because they cannot stand the competence, the strength, the emotional intelligence, the likability of the targeted person. They just want to get rid of them. And they'll do anything shamelessly and utterly creatively to destroy that person's career, health, family cohesion, and standing in the workplace. They will tear them apart from coworkers, so they'll terrify coworkers so that they'll never defend their bullied friend again. And that's how they do it. And they play those games. They'll use political influence up the hierarchy and bring it down to crush the target. And actually, in our 14 years of doing this, I can tell you that that's what bullying is, and what it is not is conflict. It's not conflict between two equally powered parties, so there's no sense having the conflict resolution types come on in and claim to be bullying experts. They can just take their mediation games and leave town because mediation doesn't work. The person's already compromised. You don't compromise the compromised. This is psychological violence. Bullying is violence, and it needs a different set of tools to stop it. In our consulting business, The Work Doctor, we've mastered what those tools are, and we do it for organizations who actually care to stop bullying. But it is not conflict. The solutions have to involve making a person healthy, because it's the health harm that drives the whole movement. My wife, Dr. Ruth, was tormented by her clinical supervisor in a psychiatry clinic, and that woman's name was Sheila. And she drove Ruth to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, a strong emotional impact. But stress-related physical complications are also important. Cardiovascular compromises, from hypertension all the way up through heart attack. And then there are the gastrointestinal problems. This is a health hazard. Bullying is a health hazard. Interestingly, the Canadian laws and European laws are codifying bullying into their occupational health and safety codes. It is a workplace health hazard. Of course, in America, we've got the issue of, hey, bullying is just a management style and practice. Well, that's why we launched the Healthy Workplace Bill campaign. We've been working since 2002 to get the legislation passed. Hasn't passed yet, but it's sure gaining momentum. Won't you sign on and join the campaign? That's at healthyworkplacebill.org. Please don't forget that. That's an important part to push employers who choose to basically promote the bullies and sustain the bullies by rewarding the bullies. This will push them and prod them to do the right thing. They should pay attention to the bottom line. Right now, the bottom line doesn't even matter in these tough economic times. When the bully is Bob, Bob can do no wrong. Well, Bob needs to be outed for doing wrong. So help us and the legislative campaign. Continue to visit the site. We'll continue to provide you with more and more information. And we have a new book coming out this year in 2011. So look forward to your support and encouragement. Thanks.
Could you believe bullying as a management tool? Today, we have Dr. Deidra Sorrell here to talk about bullying in the workplace in education. Education of all places. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here on the show.
So, give us a little bit about your background. Who is Dr. Deidra Sorrell?
Well, I am a school psychologist. I've been a school psychologist for 16 years now, and I have almost 20 years of experience in counseling. So before I became a school psychologist, I worked as a counselor, and I even worked in higher education with the Upward Bound program at one of the universities in the area, providing counseling to some of the youth there. But I've been providing counseling and also psychological testing services to students in need in this area.
So you are in the realm of education.
Yes, I am.
And bullying is there.
Bullying is there, and you wouldn't expect it to be there because typically the education field has the reputation of just people who are just very caring and nurturing and just kind of see the world through rose-colored glasses. You wouldn't think that people in the field of education would have to deal with bullying, but they do.
Yeah, we hear about bullying with children. Schoolyard, lunchroom bullying, after school, 3 o'clock, black your eyes, bullying. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about the actual educators being bullied.
Yes.
So could you tell me about your experience?
Okay. Well, I have had some personal experiences with bullying, but what I ended up doing was using my experiences as a topic for my dissertation. So I completed my dissertation a year ago. Actually, it was a year to this day. And I focused on the lived experiences of educators facing workplace bullying in their schools. And when I experienced bullying as an educator myself, I had the impression that it was just something that was unique to the system that I was in. And I didn't think that it occurred anywhere else. I didn't think, when I thought of Hawaii, I never thought that educators in Hawaii would be bullied. I never thought that educators in Georgia would be bullied. But when I did my research, I was able to interview teachers across the United States, and my jaw dropped when I heard about their experiences. So I interviewed a teacher who was local, but most of the educators were in other states: Georgia, Hawaii, Tennessee, Virginia, and I gained some very, very valuable stories that helped me learn more about bullying.
Well, tell us about your experience.
Well, my experience was years ago. I was in a position, actually I had a couple of experiences, but I will tell you about one experience because the person who was a bully is no longer working. This person is retired. So this was a situation. As a school psychologist, I was in a school where the racial dynamics were a little difficult. And when
What does that mean? I hate to cut you off, but racial dynamics, what does that mean? Was it too many black people, too many white people? What was it?
Well, the school, I would say, had an even number of African American employees and Caucasian employees, but there was some underlying racism in the school. And when I was assigned to the school, I was warned that the school had the issues. So I was a little nervous going there, but when I went there and I met the special education coordinator, I found that his behavior was a little brash, but I figured, well, let me give him the benefit of the doubt and let me try to get along with him. But what I found was that when I submitted my psychological reports for meetings, he wanted to correct them. So he would read through them and he would give me feedback, and then he would question my eligibility decisions. And he even wrote on one of the reports, "Not true." Yes. And it actually came up in a hearing, and unfortunately our district lost the hearing because they obtained a copy of the report that had "not true" written on it, and they thought that I wrote it. So, when I explained to them in the hearing, no, I didn't write it, I'm not sure who wrote it, we lost all credibility as a school district. So what I learned in that experience was workplace bullying, when that occurs, there are no winners. Because at the end of the day, who really suffered? The students suffered. So there was a psychological that was written that was good work on my part, but a coordinator who wrote not true on it, which really just took the credibility away from our entire eligibility team.
So what happens with workplace bullying is that that bully makes it so you're not credible, you're not believable, you're incompetent. That's their whole goal, to destroy you. And they do it in a coy way.
Yes.
A way in which some would question your sanity.
Yes, definitely. And in this situation, the person, the bully, didn't like me for whatever reason. I think he described me as aloof, and I found that interesting because the school had a very high referral rate. So every week, a new student was referred to me for testing. So I was completely just drowning in assessments, and I was so busy. So every minute that I was at the school, I was working. If I wasn't testing, I was scoring reports or I was writing reports. And many of my colleagues quantified how long it takes to write a report, and they said that it takes 14 to 20 hours to write a psychological report. So I was working through lunch. I was typing away on my computer and eating at the same time. So I really didn't have much time to make conversation and get to know him and other coworkers. I was just very focused. So that, to him, was something that made me worthy of bullying. So, but it went further. He complained to my supervisors about me and wanted me removed. And then he went on to say that I wasn't coming to work. And I actually had to pull the sign-in sheet to show my supervisor that I was coming to work. So at that point, I knew it was bullying after he said that I wasn't coming to work in an attempt to have me removed from my position at that school.
And that's their goal. Their goal is to have you fired because they feel like they're empowered that way. And then it sends a message to others.
Yes.
And you may have not been the only person he was bullying. Do you know of anyone else that he did in that manner?
Actually, I do. The psychologist who was assigned to the school before me, he was able to remove in that manner.
So he was successful.
He was successful, and he was also successful in bullying other staff members at the school. And it's interesting, people came to me and told me their experiences, and I noticed that everyone was African American, and the bully was Caucasian. So I just made a natural assumption that this was racially based.
Okay. How did it make you feel?
I was very upset because this was 2010. It was 5 years ago. And I really thought that in 2010 that we wouldn't have those problems. I thought that especially in a metropolitan area where the school was located, that staff members would judge people based on the content of their character or based on the work that they provided and not necessarily the color of their skin, but that wasn't the case with this individual.
Yeah. So, but it seems like you came out a little unscathed. You know, there are some that have to go to therapy. There's like gastrointestinal problems. I mean, the video told you.
Oh, yes.
PTSD. Could you imagine having PTSD from going to work?
Yes, and it does happen. In fact, some of the research that Dr. Namey has done shows that the victims of workplace bullying suffer the same trauma that domestic violence survivors suffer. So when you think of a domestic violence relationship and you think of the period where you're kind of walking on eggshells, you don't want to offend the person, you're a little afraid to say and do something because you don't know what they may do. Mm-hmm. And then you have that blow up and you have that violence. And in workplace bullying, it's typically not physical violence, it's verbal, it's psychological violence, but it is violence without a doubt, and it does happen. And it is, even though you may not have the bruises or the scars on your body to show, there are psychological implications, most definitely.
So just imagine this going on in education, in an education setting, and we're supposed to be the role models for children, but we want children to stop bullying.
Exactly.
That's laughable.
It is laughable, and that was my point when I dealt with it personally. When I wrote a letter of complaint to the principal about this special ed coordinator, I said, well, this individual yelled at me in the hallway. So what are we teaching children? Because we're teaching them that we want them to get along with each other, and we want them to handle conflicts in a very positive manner. But when they see the school leaders doing this to each other, they think that it's okay. So we have to change that.
It's not okay.
Not at all.
So your dissertation with the lived experiences, could you give some examples of the types of things your participants experienced?
Well, I'll tell you what I found to be the most shocking was that most of the participants in my study were over the age of 40. Mm-hmm. And one of the themes that I found when I analyzed my data was that the people who were bullied or felt bullied in the workplace were typically over the age of 40 and female. And in addition to that, these were also very hard workers. And even though they described themselves, when they gave examples of the things that they did, and just based on me interviewing them and getting to know them, I could tell that they truly cared about people. Mm-hmm. So that to me is very sobering, because that lets us know that this could be us. This could be any one of us. The research also shows that people who have a compassionate, and this is Dr. Namey's research of the Workplace Bullying Institute, people who are compassionate and kind, when he polled people who had been bullied, people who described themselves as compassionate and kind were most likely to be bullied, as opposed to people who described themselves as abusive in their personalities. But I also found that people were bullied in various ways. So most of the bullying was sabotage. Mm-hmm. So most of the bullying came from the principal or from coworkers. So the principal had someone who they sort of had as their pet or their friend, their right-hand person, and that person was the lookout. And they would watch them and report to the principal some of the things that were happening, true or not true. One participant in particular had an injury. She damaged her ACL and had to have physical therapy. She was denied physical therapy appointments, so she asked the principal if she could take time off. She was denied time, and then she also asked for a closed parking space so she could get into the school. She was denied that. And another participant had to go out on surgery and was reprimanded for not providing an adequate sub plan. She said she provided a plan for her subs, but somehow it disappeared.
I wonder why. I wonder how. So you're a creative writer.
Yes.
And it stems from your experiences in a lot of areas.
Well, my creative writing at this point is focusing on racism. And I have a series of books, and I've titled the books the Elephant in the Room series. And the reason I called it that is because when we use that term, the elephant in the room, we're talking about something that is obvious, but we just don't want to address it because it's uncomfortable. And the topic of racism is very uncomfortable for many people and for many parents. And I thought, with all the things that have been happening in the news, especially this year, when we're talking about the Freddie Grays, the Sandra Blands, the Laquan McDonalds, and our children are seeing this on the news, they have questions. So how do we address this with our children? My children are 6 and 7, and they want to know what's going on. and I can't hide it from them. How many times can I turn off the TV before they figure out what's going on? So the first book that I wrote was called Jalen and the Green Book Reloaded. And it's about a young boy, an 11-year-old boy, who finds the Negro Traveler's Green Book. I don't know if you've heard of it, but this was a book that came out in the late 30s and peaked in the mid-1940s. And this was a book that African Americans used to determine which businesses to go to when they're traveling. Because at the time, African Americans couldn't even get gas at certain gas stations, if you can imagine that. They couldn't stop at certain restaurants. They couldn't go to certain hotels. So this list provided everything. And then it provided other stuff, just a really nice social. If you could think of a Jet magazine with businesses, that's what the Green Book was.
That's what it was, okay.
So the little boy finds the magazine and he decides to kind of reload it, and he makes an online version, and it becomes popular, but then he suffers some consequences with that. So that's the first book in the series, and it's has good reviews on Amazon so far, and I hope that it will continue to be popular, and I'm working on another book right now as well.
That's fantastic, and it ties to what you actually experience in the workplace and seeing there was an underlying racism thing going on.
Well, yes, and the research also shows that people of color are more likely to be bullied than Caucasians. So African American and Asian Americans have something in common. We, according to the Workplace Bullying Institute, African Americans and Asian Americans are tied in the percentage of times that they reported being bullied. And then there's Hispanics, and then Caucasians, of course, are not bullied as much in the workplace.
Whew. There's so much that we need to learn about workplace bullying because, again, we are the examples for children. How are we going to lead and cultivate leaders if we can't be good role models?
Exactly.
Still to come, you are not alone.
Are you or someone you know suffering from stress, anxiety, or depression? Have you experienced feelings of frustration due to lack of family and/or career support? Let's talk. Relationship issues got you down? Get the help you need. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. If confidentiality, comfort, and convenience is important to you, guidance is provided on your terms. You deserve peace of mind. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. Get answers now. Make your appointment today. Let's talk. Clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly.
And we're back. We have someone here that has also experienced workplace bullying. Tonja Jones. Tonja, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Sheba, for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you for coming, because I know this is a tough topic, and I know how emotional it can be. So be strong. I know. No, I really do know. And I'm just happy you're sharing this story with us.
Well, thank you, Sheba. Again, this is actually the first time that I've been able to really voice my experience, so I appreciate you for having me on.
Can you describe your experience?
My experience with workplace bullying was more mental. It was more of a manipulation that I had been dealing with for about 6 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
It was subtle at the beginning, and I wasn't quite sure of what was going on, and I don't think I realized the bullying until much later on down the line. It took a toll on me health-wise, and a little bit about me. I am someone who works really, really hard. I come to work every day. I love children, and all I wanted to do was just work.
Let's stop for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You heard she said she works very hard and she loves children. So Tonja has also been in education. This is where the bullying took place for her also. Education, working with little children. What age did you work with?
I work with fourth grade students, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds. I taught grades 3 through 6 actually. So I saw bullying being done in my classroom from different students, and I was stressed to my students that this is not a place to bully. I do not allow bullying by any means. However, I was being bullied myself. So it was difficult to teach my students that and have that still being done to me at the same time.
But did you understand what was happening to you?
I did not know, like I said at the beginning, but further throughout my time there, the feeling that I would get each morning, it was very hard for me to walk into that building. I would actually take maybe 15, 20 minutes to just sit in my car and just get my mind right before entering that building. It was hard. I actually got to a point where I was so stressed that my doctor ordered me to have at least 2 weeks off because of the pain that I was having in my neck, and my body just was shut down on me. And so even when I went to this particular person and I shared what was going on with me, she would always make it more about her, and if I can do it, why can't you? And at the time, I was also going through a program where I was getting my master's in leadership and administration, and so she kept me very close to her because I was shadowing her. So a lot of times she would use that as leverage.
So this was a principal.
Yes, this was a principal. So she would tell me things, and she would say, well, how are you going to be a leader if you can't deal with these things? And so I just felt like I had no outlet. I could not talk to her. So I kept a lot of it to myself.
Was there anyone you could consult, or,
There were other people in the building that they were being bullied as well, but my personality wouldn't really allow me to just share everything. A lot of what was going on was almost, she would divide and conquer throughout the building, meaning she never wanted anyone to have a relationship. So she kept things going where we did not trust anyone in the building. So she would get close to me. She would want to know information about me. She would tell me information about someone else. And it just turned into this huge web of deceit throughout the building and lies, so you never really knew who you could trust in the building. Mm-hmm. So it was very difficult for me to just teach, to be myself, to trust anyone. It just went on and on. So no, I did not have anyone that I could really talk to. So that, on top of what I was dealing with, made it really difficult.
So, your family, what emotional state were you in with your family? Going home, I mean, we are at work more than we are at home. And I'm an educator, I would always tell my students, you're my children because I see you more than I see my own.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that?
Okay, well, I am a mother of 3. And so I would mentally get prepared to go home because I knew that it wouldn't be fair to put my frustrations out on my own children. So my kids knew I would go in the house, and I had to literally go into my bedroom, close the door for about 30 minutes, and just meditate and just get my mind mentally prepared to come out and cook dinner and get ready for your mommy time. So it was difficult for me because my kids would come, kids don't know. They just, as soon as they see mommy, they don't know that mommy had a stressful day. So I would just take that time to just
Depress.
Depress, yes.
Decompress.
Decompress.
You were probably depressed.
Yeah.
Because that causes a depression.
Well, yeah. And I'm glad you said that because that was something that I did share with my principal. And when I shared that information with her, she consoled me about this depression that I felt that I was going through, and the doctor even said that he feels that that's something that I'm dealing with. But she took that and she used it against me, and she told as many people as she could that I was depressed. She had a lot of people in the building talking about me. Like I said, no one in the building trusted anyone. It was just everybody talked about everybody because this is how she wanted it. I even had a friend that she did not like, and because she did not like her, she did not want me to like her. She did not want me to be around her on the weekends, or she would know if we were out. It was almost as if you did not want her to become your enemy. So she made things very difficult. She actually went to someone who is a friend of mine and told her, well, Tonja's going to need you, so be there for her. And what she did after that was she just drove a wedge between the friendship between myself and this other young lady who ultimately ended up being fired.
Oh. And
because I was in a leadership role, she would have me to go into her classroom. She made a position for me to go into her classroom because this particular person, she would have some difficulties with classroom management or some other things in her classroom. And she had me to go into her classroom and observe her. And I asked her not to have me go in there, but maybe I can go into some other classrooms because this is my friend,
right.
And she knew this, but she used you're going into this administrative role. How can you you have to learn how to get rid of your friends, so to speak.
Cut your losses.
Cut your losses, exactly. So I did have to do, those things and go into her classroom and observe her, but really it was just to build her own case to get this other person fired. So it went on for a very long time.
So how did you get out of that?
Well, this particular person was terminated from her position, not because of the bullying, but because of some other things that had taken place. And it was the weirdest thing, because after she left, it was so hard. It was very unsettling. I wasn't comfortable because I felt like I had been dealing with this bullying for so long. It just didn't feel normal to me. I had a group of friends, actually. We got together and we literally we said we were going to write down everything that we had been through and take it somewhere and just burn it, just to move past that chapter, because we actually had to come together and discuss what things were you dealing with, what things were you dealing with, and when we put everything on the table, we just could not believe, how our stories were, told about me, and things that were told about this person, and it just was very manipulative. It was just a wicked web of deceit, just so she could keep us all divided, and it was very hard to work in that institution of learning.
So it was almost like you all were a part of a club.
Yeah.
That no one wanted to be a member of.
Yeah.
Silence. When I think of that, I think of rape victims of molestation, the silence, the pain, the inner pain that you can't express.
That's exactly how I felt. I felt like a victim of rape, raping me of my dignity. Absolutely. People who know me know how hard I work, and it was very unsettling every day to come in and just teach and be disrupted by her coming into my classroom for things that had nothing to do with instruction, but would call me down to her office for rumors, to question me about things that are going on inside the classroom with this teacher, that teacher. Very unprofessional. So for me, I was glad that this person was gone, but it was, it was just, now I have that to look back and say, well, I can compare it to this was bullying that I had gone through. I won't go through that again, because I'll see it and I'll know it if it happens again. But I'm glad that I want to say I had the experience, but now I know, and I can share this with, your audience and anyone else that may be going through the bullying as well.
It's a lot, and I feel like a lot of us, like you said, Dr. Sorrell, there are certain ethnicities that experience it more than others. What do we do about this? How do we combat it? So, still to come,
how to work through the pain after these messages.
You are now tuned in to Talks with Sheba with your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. We invite, excite, educate, and empower. Let's talk.
And we're back. And we're here with Dr. Sorrell and Tonja Jones. Both have experienced bullying, workplace bullying, not just anywhere, but in education. Education of all places, in the classroom, on school grounds. Make you want to get a stay away order. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you think about it, hit me. I'll get over that physical pain, but the emotional pain is just excruciating. So how do you get past that? How did you all work past it? How did your participants in your dissertation research get past that?
I found that most of my participants talk to others. So, like in your situation, they found trusted people that they could talk to. You can't trust everyone because some people will run back and tell the principal or manager or whoever the bully is what you're saying, and that makes things worse. But if you can find someone trusted, then that provides relief. They also coped by prayer. All of my participants were women, and yes, they prayed, and they also, the ones who had very supportive family members found that they were able to get through the bullying, but half of them left. So I had 6 participants in my study. 3 stayed with their school districts. Now, 1 stayed in their school district, the other 2 transferred to other school districts, and the remaining 3 were forced out. So they went out on early retirement, and a lot of it was due to illness. So it's devastating. It's devastating, but talking to others, prayer, and then some of them sought therapy, and they found that talking to a really good counselor about bullying helped. But the reality is many people in the mental health field are not knowledgeable about workplace bullying. And that's the sad part, and that's what I found out in my research, that many counselors are not empathetic when it comes to workplace bullying, and they may say things like, well, it wasn't that bad, or
Are you kidding me?
why don't you just leave, or things of that nature. Or they may even try to blame the victim by saying, well, are you sure that you didn't say something to cause this? So the thing is, the field really needs to really improve their awareness on workplace bullying. Overall, there needs to be more awareness, because there are some people who feel that workplace bullying is something that people just make up, that people need tougher skin, that people are babies and are whiners and really need to toughen up and get out there and work. And that is the furthest thing from the truth.
Let's talk about those bullies that are rewarded for it in certain urban district schools. They get promoted. I'm a bully, so now I'm superintendent.
Well, I think that we're going through a very interesting time in education, because I think, and these are just my words, I think that we are at a time where we're seeing that student achievement is not where we want it to be. And we're trying to just fix it, and we don't know what to do. And we've tried, school reform has tried many different procedures, and we're finding that it's really not getting those test scores where they need to be. And sometimes I think that we need to ask ourselves, are test scores what really a true measure of success? Especially when kids can graduate from high school and not have the financial literacy or the common sense to get through life, we
Common
may need
sense.
another
Ooh, don't
measure.
talk about common sense.
We may need another measure
We need
of success.
a annual test for common sense.
I agree.
Common sense must be taught.
Yeah.
It's not just something
not
that's
innate.
organic.
Mm,
So
amazing.
I think that some school districts want these people to come in and whip them into shape. And people with that mentality and with that approach tend to be bullies. Those are the ones who will stay up all night and work and expect their staff to do the same thing. They'll say, hey, I'm working. Go send your kids to daycare, all night daycare. Send them to
All
grandma's.
night daycare.
Send them somewhere. You're going to stay here and you're going to work. They're the ones who will say, hey, come in on the summer, even though you have your summers off,
Right.
and work. Come in on the weekends and work. Not, is this something that you choose to do? Because I think that it's great to provide those opportunities for kids, but make it voluntary,
Right.
but making it, some managers make it mandatory. So that's when it can, if you don't do it, then if there are repercussions, then that can turn into bullying.
I find it funny that a lot of times administrators, they want you to differentiate instruction, which I think is key when it comes to learning. But the point in differentiating that instruction is really because students learn differently. They don't all learn the same.
Right.
And yet, when you deal with your staff, you don't differentiate. It's not instruction, but you're not differentiating as you're getting to know your staff members. You expect everyone to handle things the same. And I think that a lot of administrators need to get to know their staff members and know that, hey, I can't just expect everyone to stay until midnight to help put up a mural, because I have someone important coming
Right.
tomorrow, and I need this person to help my school look good, because you do have those people who would do that, like such as myself.
Right.
But I did that because I felt if I didn't, there would be consequences and repercussions. So I just think it's important for people who hold those leadership positions to get to know their staff and know that everybody doesn't follow the same accord. You have to know your people.
Definitely, just like you have to know your students.
Yes,
It's multiple
absolutely,
intelligences.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you said differentiation. Hey, there's a lot of educators complaining about their professional development not being differentiated.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was not a joke or something far-fetched. It's needed.
Yeah.
Because if you want instruction to change, you have to meet your teachers where they are, find out how they learn so they can teach better.
And as a leader, they are instructing. They
Absolutely.
are instructing, whether they see it, know it, or not. Every day when we walk in, as we enter the building and we talk to these administrators, they are teaching us. Our school is based on, the success is based on the leadership of that building. So, I don't know. It's just, I just hope that more administrators and leaders take that stance to do better in their schools.
But as you said, Dr. Sorrell, to do better, they have to know better.
That's true.
So there has to be some training done. The word has to get out. We can't be silent.
No.
We have to speak up.
Most definitely.
Okay. Well, now it's time for Who Does That? And you're probably wondering what that means. Who Does That is just a little segment that we talk about those crazy things that go on in this world. And I wanted to just mention how we just had Black Friday, and there were some people out there wanting to change that tradition and make it a buy nothing day. So with Buy Nothing Day, I'm a shopaholic, y'all. I went through the 12-step program for shopping. But Buy Nothing Day was you do something else, you post online what you actually did that day. And, the other activity was take empty bags with absolutely nothing in it and walk around with them. You said,
Interesting.
But today's Cyber Monday, a marvelous Cyber Monday. So if you did Buy Nothing Day, I'm sure you're buying something today to make up for not buying anything. But, those are the crazy things that people do. But I want to thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. And it's just a shame that these things can go on. But I do tell you, be strong. And those that are having this problem out there, seek counseling. Don't be quiet. Being quiet hurts because what happens is almost like a cycle. What children witness adults going through, they may not understand it, but then the traits transfer and something happens and they experience it. And here it is, another generation experiencing the same thing. So, again, thank you, ladies. Well, it's a wrap for us on this marvelous Monday. Thanks for hanging out. And I thank Dr. Sorrell and Tonja Jones for opening their hearts, their minds, and letting everyone know that workplace bullying has to stop. It's not a game. It is not a game, and it's in education. And if you want our children, yes, they're our children because it takes a village to raise them. We have to do better because now we know better. And remember, work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, and dance like nobody's looking. We'll talk later.
Talks with Sheba. Be empowered.